front office to the kitchen, and they made it into a mock-up. And that was the first mock-up I ever thought of.
Amazing.
And actually, when we finally opened up our big Trinity school in Miami, I had them build a real mock-up. It was 707 with a blind side that was open, and the one side was the same as the aircraft.
And you also trained, after World War II, you trained the Japanese and Chinese stewardesses for the Pacific flights.
Yes, just as Japanese stewardesses to start with. There were about 17 or 18 girls when I finally was asked to transfer it back to New York. But that was a marvelous experience for the girls. Frankly, I think that was the finest group of girls I've ever been associated with. They knew their presence, their treatment of the passenger, their inability to get mad. It was just a great group.
Now, the domestic airlines had stewards, stewardesses, but they were almost all entirely trained as nurses?
At the beginning.
At the beginning.
Yes. The domestic aircraft had stewardesses, I would guess, about 1970 or thereabouts, and they began recruiting regular girls for stewardesses.
And Pan Am really was in the forefront because the women that they chose had poise, had beauty, and intelligence. I mean,
That's
just
right.
Everything you'd want in a personality.
These girls were unbelievable, really, truly.
Yeah, I saw a picture of you with them surrounding you, and sitting on your lap. That looked pretty good.
I was always willing to take my picture with them.
Oh yeah, I bet. And how long was the training period initially for them?
Initially, when I went back to New York to take over training, the people in management had designated 7 weeks to train. And what I did, I said, that's too long. We'll train for 4 weeks. And 1 week we'll send the girls out on the line. And as stewardesses trainees, which was present on their wings, it said trainee, they would go up from Miami to London to Paris to San Francisco to Honolulu down to South America for 1 week of flying. And then they'd be back for that's 6 weeks of training. And it was, to me, it was very, very, very complimentary.
Were a lot of the stewardesses and stewards bilingual?
Oh, almost all of them had to be.
Right.
They had to be. There was a group from Spain. There was a group from Germany. Some of the girls came from Paris. Some came from up in Denmark, Copenhagen, U.S., Honolulu with the Japanese girls. We had marvelous lingual girls, every one of them.
Now, you were a supervisor on the historic flight of Premier Yoshida when he flew from Tokyo to San Francisco in 1951 to sign the peace treaty.
That's right.
If you could share that experience with us.
Well, I was telling you the story today. We were in Tokyo. The plane had arrived from San Francisco. And incidentally, only the Japanese people, Japanese gentlemen who were in the Diet which is the same as our Congress. Uh, they were the only ones on this airplane. And when I went down the stairs, a chap was sitting in the seat smoking a cigarette, and I knew that they were fueling the aircraft. And I yelled at him. I said, "Sir, put it out." And he put it out, and I said, "Be aware there's fuel that's being pumped into the aircraft now." I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "My name is Chris Dunning." And I said, "Chris Dunning?" I said, "I'm Gene Dunning. It's a wonder that you're smoking down in the lounge." So that flight was one of many flights we've had that we went Tokyo to Honolulu direct. We sent a fellow out by the name of Sid Sarabini. He tracked the jet stream, which is now commonly used and commonly referred to as a jet stream, into the West Coast from Honolulu. This was as far as Honolulu, and the next port of call was San Francisco, where Yoshida signed the Japanese peace treaty.
We have this is a Japanese rifle?
A Japanese rifle. From the Japanese-Russia War, which was in the 18th century, I think. And a trip I had at Sugi, we flew from San Francisco to Honolulu to Wake Island, and then Wake Island out to Tokyo. In Tokyo, we flew down to Tsugi, which is just south of Tokyo. And this gun, I'm ready to send to my son, Rick, who treasured it as much as I have, because this gun was owned by somebody in the Japanese population. And the word went out when MacArthur took over the administration of Japanese people. He sent up an order that any firearms were to be turned into the Tokyo arsenal. And we went out there one day to take a look at the arsenal, and I saw this on top of 20, 30, 40 guns, the old guns, not the new ones. The ones that the Japanese used in the U.S. war were stacked all over the place. But this was 100 years old then.
At least, yeah.
At least.
Amazing. It's got an octagon barrel.
Yes, and it should have, it was supposed to rest on a tripod. It's a wonderful, wonderful keepsake for me.
Oh, yeah.
To look at that and think 100, 200 years ago, somebody out using it in the Japanese-Russia War was unbelievable.
Now, the navigation system on those early planes, a radio beacon, and they would home in on the strength of the beacon, and when that worked,
That's right.
that was how they navigated. If that didn't work, which I think happened sometimes, they had to use a sextant and use celestial navigation.
And they used celestial navigation almost every flight.
Oh, really?
Yes, almost all the flights. They would track the position of the aircraft upon a map, and they would put a start fix down on the chart, keeping close to the main chart, until he got into Honolulu or San Francisco, whichever way he's going.
So, okay, so they used that across the ocean, and then as they got in closer to the mainland or one of the islands, that's where they could pick up the beacon?
That's right.
Okay. Now, radio communications, they use Morse code.
Morse code.
And when did they actually go to voice radio? Do you remember that?
About 1951, I think. It was close to that time. When we took the B-377, the Boeing Stratocruiser, they could use voice. But until then, it was all Morse code.
Amazing. And they used International Morse code?
International Morse code.
During the war, it had to be encoded when they were transmitting, so that added a whole nother layer.
Well, until then, it was regular Morse code. But then when we went to war, on that flight of Bob Ford's, they had to cut out all of their sending because the Japanese could pick up the airplane.
Right. All of the original planes that were owned by Pan Am, the Clipper ships, when the war ended, the Navy kept those?
Yes, they did. And incidentally, I have a picture that's shown on this program that I was on the last flight of the flying boats to San Francisco from Honolulu. And as I understand, the Navy, which had taken over all planes, was ready to give them back to Pan Am. But unfortunately for them, Juan Tripp, who was the president of our airline, said, "I'm sorry, I don't care to have them back."
They're all worn out by then.
And that was the end of the flying boats and my beginning to work on the constellations.
Okay. Yeah, because by then they had much newer ships.
Sure.
Much faster, more efficient.
A DC-4 at 13 hours. That was unbelievable. You could go from San Francisco to Honolulu to 13 hours?
13 hours.
Impossible. I went into Honolulu last year for just a stay, and I think our flight time was something like 5 hours and 20 minutes, and with wind blowing against us. So we've come a long ways.
Leave the train on the track, take the boss off your back, leave the gang in a bind, out of sight, out of mind, get away, right away, like today, for once in a lifetime, get into this world, leave the don'ts and the do's, let a friend fill your shoes, take a walk with your wife, make a run for your life, get away, right away, like today, for once in a lifetime, get into this world.
Pan Am makes the going great. Pan Am makes the going